One of the more confusing topics in Pokeclicker are Pokerus and EVs. Pokerus is unlocked after completing the quest A New World in Sinnoh, as it will infect your Kanto starter. Pokerus works a bit differently compared to the main series games, in that Pokerus allows your Pokemon to gain EVs rather than just doubling them. At a first glance, not much is explained about EVs and Pokerus, with the game pretty much only telling you when you unlock it that catching Pokemon gives you a damage boost. And while it does go into more detail if you know where to look, such as the in-game FAQ, it is a lot of information to take in. So with this guide, I'll try to explain what it is and make it more simple to understand. But without further ado, let's explain what Pokerus is and what it does. Starting off with Pokerus, there are 4 stages. Obviously, you have the non-infected stage, which will consist of most of your Pokemon when it is unlocked. Second up is the infected stage. Now, this is how you actually start spreading Pokerus. When the Pokemon that has Pokerus is put into the hatchery alongside an uninfected Pokemon that shares the same type, it will become infected. The infector cannot spread Pokerus if it is ready to hatch or if you're using hatchery helpers. While in this second stage, it cannot gain EVs just yet, and it pretty much just tells you that you successfully infected it, as it will immediately move on to the next stage once it is hatched. The contagious stage is when the Pokemon is able to gain EVs. You can tell if the Pokemon is contagious by viewing its Pokédex entry or by clicking on it on the Pokemon list and viewing the top right. Your Pokemon will be in this contagious stage until you reach 50 EVs, at which point it will move on to the next stage. The resistant stage, as mentioned before, is reached by gaining 50 EVs for a Pokemon. At this rate, the damage bonus gained from EVs is heavily nerfed. You can still get EVs and damage past 50, but the effect is less noticeable as you gain more. Now with the stages covered, let's move on to what are EVs. EVs, or effort values, are gained whenever you catch a Pokemon and are distributed to that Pokemon which you caught. The value given can differ drastically depending on the circumstances in which you caught it, but we will cover the specifics of that later on. For now, the general gist is the more Pokemon you catch while infected, the more damage you get, and 1 EV gets you 1% more damage for that Pokemon up until in the resistant stage, in which that bonus drops. You can view the amount of EVs you have on a Pokemon by looking at its dex entry. It's pretty simple in concept. Where it gets a little more complicated is when it comes to dictating the amount of EVs gained from a catch. So let's move on to what determines this. First, let's start off with what doesn't give EVs. Hatching Pokemon, Base Wanderers, and the Magikarp Shopmon in Kanto all do not grant EVs. Base Wanderers are Pokemon which wander onto the farm no matter which berry is planted. There are only a select few affected by this, so it's not too much of an issue, but it's something to be aware of. The Magikarp located in the hidden shop in Kanto does not grant EVs either, because it was decided it was too easy due to the low price, and hatching isn't catching them, so that's why too. A very helpful tool is the in-game FAQ, which lists all the different EV values. But what does all of this mean? This list is basically all the circumstances that a Pokemon can be caught and that will determine the final number of EVs awarded. So let's look at this piece by piece. An easy way to look at this table is to categorize it into 2 different sections, the catch itself and the bonus. So let's go over the first one first. The catch is what determines the base numbers of EVs awarded that will be affected by the bonuses later on. Only one of these can be chosen and are based on the location or method of obtaining the Pokemon. For stuff not specifically mentioned on the list, such as routes or dungeons, it will use the base yield when caught. The bonuses are additional circumstances that can happen with the catch that will give a multiplier to the catch EV amount. Multiple of these bonuses can apply and they multiply off each other. For example, if I catch a shiny dungeon boss with a repeat ball, we can figure out the exact amount of EVs awarded by looking at it step by step. First, let's find out the catch EV, which would be 0.1, since dungeons use the base yield. Next is to figure out which bonuses were met and do the multiplication. A shiny gives 5 times EVs, the dungeon boss gives 10 times, and a repeat ball adds 5 times as well. If we multiply all of it, we end up with a final EV amount of 25. It doesn't matter the order you multiply the bonuses in, and I recommend using a calculator to make it easier on yourself. Something not mentioned in the FAQ list is the potential using Rowap berries in the farm, which increases EV gain. Using a full field of them alongside Lumberries, you can get a 2.5 times multiplier to EVs. So now that we know the process of determining EVs from a catch, let's further explain what exactly each catch method is and bonus in gameplay, just so we have a full understanding of what everything is. In this section, I'll explain what each catch method and bonus is. Most of these are self-explanatory, so I'll try and make this quick. Starting off with the catches, first, the base yield is given for anything not specifically mentioned in the other catches below. Not including things that don't award EVs, the base yield is given for catching Pokemon on routes or in dungeons. Evolution item EVs are awarded each time you use an evolution item on a Pokemon, and can be done infinitely. The EVs are awarded to the evolution of the Pokemon listed, and evolution items are mostly found in shops or in the underground. Wanderers are Pokemon that are randomly caught whenever berries are on the farm. Wanderers are different from base Wanderers in that they are only attracted to certain berries. You can view which Pokemon are attracted by the berry you plant by looking at its berry dex. Base Wanderers are the same as normal Wanderers, except they are attracted to every type of berry. Only these 12 Pokemon are base Wanderers, and these do not award EVs at all, but since it's on the list I'll mention it. Shopmon are Pokemon that are bought from shops. Occasionally, these Pokemon may be needed for Pokédex progression, but the majority of these guys are rare variant Pokemon that are very expensive. A small portion of Pokemon are available with this method. Safaris for Pokemon caught in the Safari Zone in Kanto and the Friend Safari in Kalos. It's very simple, with the only things worth noting are the different catch mechanics and the fee for entry, that being 100 quest points in Kanto and 1000 in Kalos. The Friend Safari is the only way of EV trained Pokemon that were not previously available for EV training with the other methods, making this the only way to EV train a lot of the more rare and event Pokemon in the game. Moving on to the bonus category, we have shiny Pokemon. Applicable to all the other methods, this gives a 5 times bonus. There isn't much more to explain. The odds for finding the shiny fluctuates depending on what you are doing. I go more further into detail on shinies in my video about it, but the FAQ also tells you what the odds are as well. The dungeon modifier is for Pokemon normally found in any of the tiles in the dungeon. This bonus does not apply to the Mimic or the Boss bonus, as the game will only pick one of the 3 depending on your encounter. The Mimic is for Pokemon that are rarely found inside of chests of a dungeon. Not every dungeon has Pokemon in the chest loot pool, and the look of the chest will always be a common chest for these ones. The dungeon boss is, well, the boss at the end of every dungeon, indicated by this icon on the map. It can consist of a Pokemon or a trainer. Roamers are exceptionally rare Pokemon that can be found on routes randomly. These mostly consist of legendaries, but can also have event Pokemon during events. The base odds of finding these guys are 1 in 8,192 on the starting route of every region, but there are NPCs in each region which will tell you the route they are located. The odds on these routes currently mentioned by them are 1 in 2,730, but this will change every 8 hours. The odds also increase depending on the route you are on, up to a max of 1 in 4,096 at the highest route of the region, which is just the route that has the highest health. The Repeat Ball is just a type of Pokeball which is found in certain dungeons or by training with the Berry Master in Unova. The description of the item is kind of worded weirdly, but it gives a bonus catch rate based on the amount of times you have caught that Pokemon before, capping at 15% and providing a flat 5 times bonus to EVs. The Macho Brace is a held item that can be found in the fight area in Sinnoh. This is the only place it can be found at and is bought for 1500 quest points. The Power Brace is an upgraded version of the Macho Brace and can be only found and bought at the A Tree Maybe location in Alola for 2000 quest points. These held items can only be equipped once the Pokemon has Pokerus as well. The Blue Flute is one of the 6 obtainable flutes and is bought at Undella Town in Unova. Its bonus scales off your achievement bonus and it consumes 1 water, bug, and ghost gem per second. I think that covers everything related to Pokerus and whatnot. If there's something specific you want to EV train, your best bet is to look at the wiki for the encounter locations and go from there. Otherwise, some closing tips: use a Power Brace, use your farm with Roll-Wop berries, and if you can, use Repeat Balls. These really speed up the process. But anyways, let me know in the comments if I missed anything, and I'll see you all in the next video.